You know, there are few things that are as hard as the loss of a child. I've got a friend that I think can help us with that. Pam Henson today at Live on Purpose TV. There are few things harder. I can't even imagine a lot of things harder, and I've got a really great imagination. Harder than losing a child. And I'm so sorry that this is something that has come up for you in whatever context that it has in your life. As I anticipated making this video, I knew exactly who I needed to invite. Pam, that's why you're here.
Well, thanks for having me.
This is my good friend Pam Henson. Let me give you a little background on who Pam is. She was on my podcast. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
This was years ago. I invited Pam to come on my show, Live on Purpose Radio. In fact, you can link to my interview with Pam right down in the description below and listen to our conversation. We had a little more time there to talk about some of the history and the context around all of this. Pam is the author of this book, Running with Angels, which has inspired, I think, thousands of people to see some new possibilities in their life. Running with Angels. And then she followed it up with this one, Finding the Angel Within, which is a wonderful little book about self-worth and discovering the value that's inside of all of us. But the context, and Pam, maybe you can share some of your story around this as much as you'd like to. All of this project started with the loss of not just one, but two children.
Yeah.
Which I love the cover of your book, because if you can see this, it shows a young woman here that's running, and there are two reflected shadows in the lake, symbolizing those two children that you had lost. And there's a whole story behind that.
Yes.
Pam, is there hope?
There certainly is. We lost a twin daughter. Boy, it's been 28 years. And
oh, wow.
It does get easier. The pain never goes away, of course, but it does get easier. And then 17 years ago today, we went in for a routine ultrasound. I was pregnant with a little boy. And we discovered that there was no heartbeat, and he had passed away. So he would be 17. He was actually born on the 11th of April. And I never thought that I would have to bury two children, let alone one. And the first, with our daughter Emily, it was really easy to reach for food for comfort. We had, her twin had to eat every 2 hours. She was so little. And I wasn't doing very much to take care of my needs and myself, and in turn it was hard. You kind of do with what you have. We had another daughter that had arthritis, and caring for her when she was a little girl was very difficult because she was in so much pain. And I did what I could.
Sure.
But I neglected to just take care of my basic needs, the need to exercise, the need to get out a little bit. And I have a very supportive husband. So finally, with the loss of our son, I started to walk. And that first walk was like 5 minutes, and I turned around and came home. I just didn't want to do anything but have my babies.
Right.
And I kept going out just because I wanted to feel better. That first 5-minute walk turned into 45 minutes of walking, praying, crying, listening to music, walking with my husband, walking with friends. It seemed finally to be a positive outlook, or a positive way to express my grief.
Yes.
And that led to a huge weight loss and the achievement of a dream of running a marathon.
A marathon?
Yeah, and then that led to 2 more marathons. And I've had my knees replaced, I think, because of that and because of other things. And that's
you know what, Pam? I was just remembering the story that you shared with me about this, because you were depressed. You were in a dark place. And you know what? This is a natural response. I think it's a normal response to an abnormal event that occurred. And as you lost those children, especially the first one, it triggered a process where you were dealing with it in probably the best way you knew how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And we do this as human beings. We go where we think the relief is going to be. Mm-hmm. And for you, you had turned to some food and kind of closing into yourself a bit.
Yes.
Which caused some predictable consequences in your health and your weight and just your mental health as well.
Right.
And I remember you sharing a story about being with your family, watching the runners come in on a race. Was it up in Salt Lake City, I think?
It was, uh-huh.
And one of the runners came by, which turned out to be Harper. You probably don't know who Harper is, but he is a legend in the running industry.
Yes.
Here locally in our community. Mm-hmm. But he pointed you out and said something. Would you share that with our listeners?
He did. We were waiting for my husband to come down on the marathon route. And so we watched all these runners come down. And this man, who I didn't know was Hawk at the time.
You didn't know him?
He didn't know it. I didn't know it. And he turned to me and he said, "You should be out here." And I was thinking, well, he's talking to all of us here. We should be out on the trail with him. But then I realized he was just talking to me.
It was you.
Throttle.
Well, here you are. You're depressed. You're overweight. You're having a struggle internally with this loss. And he calls you out.
Yeah.
And you took that seriously.
I did. Because I knew I wanted to be out there. Running a marathon was a dream since I was in high school, and I volunteered at the finish line at the Desert News Marathon, which is held every July 24th. And since then, but there was always an excuse not to do it, and I've never had a runner's body. I mean, the runners you see are just, and I'm going to be battling my weight my whole life. Now I exercise every day, and I try to eat healthy.
Yes. Well, it's become part of who you are and part of your message to the world. Yeah. And it's not about having the runner's body or, being predisposed toward whatever it is. What you're demonstrating here for us, Pam, I think is a stark contrast. It's normal and natural to experience the depression, right? The self-doubts, the grief that comes with losing a child. That's the way it's supposed to feel. How we deal with it can be healthy and adaptive and productive, or it can be less healthy and adaptive and productive, and you've experienced both.
Right. I've done it both ways, and believe me, the second way I did it through walking and just taking that time to take care of myself. Right. Not necessarily, going to get my nails done every week or things like that. It was just the basic needs of stopping for a drink, spiritually, physically, mentally, so important. Right.
Your second book, Finding the Angel Within, you talked about a lot of these principles that you learned through that process and how to really value yourself, which puts you in position not only to deal with the grief and the loss, but also to show up in some powerful ways for those who are still with you. And this was important for you, Pam. You had other kids.
Right. I did.
I
do.
Some things to pay attention, and you still do. So it's important to acknowledge this isn't just about us. How we deal with our own trauma and grief affects everybody around us too. And so can I just toot your horn for a minute?
Sure.
You know what I've seen this lady do? I picture it like this, Pam. We go along through life, and suddenly a whole pile of stuff is just dumped on us. Right? It's not like you signed up for this or you wanted it, but here it is. You lose a child and you experience all of that natural pain and grief that comes through that kind of an experience. That's the stuff being dumped on you. Now, what are you going to do with all this stuff that was dumped on you? Well, you wrote a couple of books that are changing people's lives. They're affecting people in ways that you couldn't have imagined before all of this.
Well, that's actually why I wrote the second one, because I heard from thousands of people that said, I feel the same way about either, the weight or the losing a child or losing a loved one or just having some challenge that they couldn't deal with.
And who doesn't?
Yeah, we all have challenges, of course. But it was neat to hear those stories. And I think, too, that when we are willing to expose ourselves to get out there, that other people are willing to share their stories as well.
Well, you took a risk in putting yourself out there, and you still do. Pam now is serving in some really phenomenal ways. In fact, you and I have had a chance recently to serve on the board of a nonprofit organization that provides some powerful educational programs for kids, the Nova Principles Foundation. Pam, you're sponsoring races every year.
We do a 5K. Crossing the finish line of my first marathon was so thrilling that I thought, everybody's got to experience this.
You got to give people an opportunity.
Yeah, and not a marathon, but a 5K. The proceeds go to the Women's and Children's Services in Utah Valley.
Oh, beautiful.
And there's a program called Angel Watch, where when parents discover that their children are probably not going to make it, these wonderful people go in and they provide support. They make molds of the little hands and feet and create a memorable experience, so that there's a positive way to, because there are so many choices you have upon learning that you're going to lose a child or when you have. And I have seen every year families that come to this Running with Angels 5K that will be held in May this year, that there's a positive outlet for that grief.
Right.
And there are families that say, you know what, this helped us to talk about it.
Right.
And a lot of times it is so hard to know what to say and to allow others in.
That feeling of community is really a healing factor.
Right.
And knowing that there's someone else who's going through that same challenge. Not exactly the same. Obviously, they're all a little different, but there's nothing that we can experience in life that hasn't already been experienced by somebody on the planet who might be available to reach out and help. And the reason I mentioned the race, Pam, is because you've taken this pile of stuff that was dumped on you and you've used it as construction material to make something that's productive and helpful. And that's one of the keys, I think, to healing and dealing with such a significant loss.
Yeah. Well,
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Folks, Pam Henson. You can connect to her in the description below. Find out more about what kinds of things she's doing to deal with this.
And I would love to hear from you and listen to your story.
Leave a comment down below or get connected with Pam that way.
Thank you.
Hard stuff, but I'm so glad that there is hope. I think that you might have some stories about hope that would be beneficial too. If you want to share those below, we'd love to have you engage in this conversation.